Great. Thank you, Omar. Good morning. So welcome and thank you for joining our Doing Business with ODOT session today. So great seeing so many partners, both internal and firms participating. I do see our numbers are going up as I'm seeing the people and admitting. So bear with us. You may hear some beeps there as additional participants join. I'm Angela Crane, Office of Equity and Civil Rights Manager here with the Oregon Department of Transportation. So today we're going to be covering small and disadvantaged business programs, DB success stories, upcoming ODOT projects, Oregon certification process, led by our certification, our COBID partners, procurement practices, and the opportunity to meet Oregon prime contractors. We hope that you find this time valuable and you gain takeaways to participate on future ODOT projects. So please tap into our subject matter experts here today. And if they cannot answer you on the spot, we will get back with you and post responses for all to see. I would also ask for your feedback. So I know Omar and Joe as well, please provide feedback to our session today so we can improve and close any gaps as we're planning for future Doing Business with ODOT sessions. So again, thank you for your interest and your time today. And this will be a great session. We are all here to support your business. So thank you again.
Thank you, Angela. Appreciate it. Everybody, welcome again. Just some quick housekeeping, just so everybody knows. So there's no mics. There's going to be no mics for this meeting, only the chat. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we'll be answering as soon as we can and as best as we can. Yeah, so no mics. This meeting is being recorded, and this is only so that we could share it in the future, have it on our YouTube video, so for other folks to watch later on and get the information as well. And then we'll also be sharing more information after the event. So the presentations, the notes, any questions that people had, we'll be sure to follow up after the event. There is an interpretation room as well. I'll drop the info how to do it on the chat. But basically, you just go to the menu on the top where it says more, go to language and speech, go to interpretation language, and then from there you could choose Spanish, and then you'll be able to hear the Spanish room on there. And then one time in Spanish, hola a todos, bienvenidos. Si hay un cuarto en español, si gustarían en español esta reunión, solo vaya al menú arriba donde dice More, vaya donde dice Language y Speech, y ahí puede escoger Interpretation Language, y de ahí puede escoger español. Si tienen alguna pregunta, me pueden comunicar conmigo, yo le puedo acomodar todo eso. But other than that, we're going to get started with our first presenters, Jeremy and Darren from COBID. Go ahead, take it away. The floor is all yours.
Y'all, good morning. My name is Jeremy Johnson. I work with the COBID Certification Office as a program analyst too. Darren Spencer, who is our new outreach and engagement coordinator, is here today as well. He just posted there, but yeah, any questions you have in the chat, Darren will be trying to answer that in tandem as I present kind of the basics about the COBID certification program. First, I wanted to thank Angela and Omar for having us to this event today. We participated in the last one. It's always beneficial. I see a lot of firms that are already COBID certified in the chat today, and hopefully some more folks come away today understanding the value of that. So that's what we're going to get into. Let me share my screen here. Okay, can y'all see the full screen there?
You're good, Jeremy.
Perfect. All right, thank you. So yeah, this is Jeremy with the COBID Certification Office, and we're gonna just kind of talk today about the basics of what our program offers. We're going to do it at a kind of higher level, given about our, we'd like a 10-minute presentation and some space left open for Q&A. And we also want to kind of honor the fact that we have translation today. So It'll be a wider level of presentation, but I know that Omar also has this deck for anybody that's interested in the full details about the program. You can certainly reach out to our office, and then this deck should be available to y'all as well. So any details you feel like I might have glanced over real fast, we'll make sure those remain accessible to you. So what is COBID? We're the primary certification office for the state of Oregon. We cover both federal certifications like DBE and ACDBE, which is Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, and then the one that's a mouthful, Airport Concessionaires Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, which is really specific to working with the airports and here, Redmond and Bend Airport and PDX, we know, have both recently contracted with COBID certified firms, so it's a good program as well. And then we have our state level certifications, which are Minority Business Enterprise, Women Business Enterprise, Veteran Business Enterprise, and then what we call a non-demographic certification that's kind of just a small business certification, and that's known as Emerging Small Business. And that really is for businesses that are coming straight out of the gates. We'll have folks that have just registered with Secretary of State and don't have their first tax return on hand yet. So that's very much about entrepreneurship and helping these small businesses that are trying to get a foothold here in Oregon get access to contracts as well. So what are the benefits of certification? Why would a person attain this? On ODOT side, the more folks we can certify as disadvantaged business enterprise firms, the more folks they have to work with to honor their kind of federally funded programs. So they have these programs and projects that receive federal infrastructure funding, and often there's a call there for them to work with disadvantaged business enterprise firms. And so what we do is basically the front end certification process where we're kind of vetting those businesses, making sure they meet the federal criteria, and then making them available to work with ODOT on those projects. In part, it's about the equity of helping small businesses compete fairly. So with any of the certifications, often the greatest advantage is simply access to or even preference in contracting. So these aren't necessarily all state or federal contracts. This can also be with cities, municipalities, counties, and we've even had a number of private sector contracts where folks like PGE have gone out of their way via their procurement equity programs to work with our certified firms. We try to help folks have the ability to compete successfully even as smaller businesses. Our office ensures that only eligible firms participate. So one of the things we do watch for is extra large businesses creating tiny subsidiaries or moving ownership around to try to fraudulently enter these programs and compete unfairly with their large amount of assets and liquidity and resources. And so we're making sure it's really, small businesses, and then with ESB, specifically Oregon small businesses that are entering into this program. And then one of the advantages on the back end is once you're registered, you go into a public directory with over 3,100 firms as of today that is searched, over and over again by procurement professionals throughout the state when they're looking for people to work on their projects. So your information is there, it's live, and they can reach out to you directly for bids or contracts you might be interested in. We also try to offer, additional networking, marketing support, and when we get folks certified that aren't sure how to start, we try to connect you with our other partners and resources, folks, like DAS and Oregon Buys, and then, the Oregon Apex Accelerator, people like the small business development centers as well that can get you in motion and on those next steps towards being able to attain larger contracts. I'll focus here on as far as opportunities. With the DBE program, that does specifically tie into ODOT work, but I will say even within that, there's a pretty diverse number of opportunities. It's not always just paving asphalt, building curbs, laying concrete. We've had people work with ODOT that run, say, aerial drones for surveying, things like that. So, flagging is obviously another one. So there's a number of different businesses that can still really take advantage with ODOT contracting of the DBE. And then on the ESB front, it's a pretty wide spectrum as well. And like I said, the contracts aren't only with ODOT. So there are advantages across the state for all different business types to engage in this contracting. We always talk about, we have a guy that was photographing conventions and events that decided to get certified and has since become one of Parks and Rec's primary photographers and works with the city of Portland and ODOT and does commercial photography now for all these different development projects. So sometimes people can take their business and just move it into, state contracting as well and kind of have that dual income stream where they're working both in the private sector and with state contracting. So if you're interested, the best place to go is orcobid.com. That is the kind of the quick link to our website. When you land, it talks in detail about all the eligibility requirements for our program. It talks about what documents you might want to bring to the table in applying. And it also has a very important button that down there at the bottom that says apply or renew. That's where you gain access to our third-party application system. So I'll kind of go into that next. So we have a contract with this company called B2G that works with the equity contracting across, I believe, 37 states now. So they're the kind of the big folks in the business, and they run our COBID certification management system. We interact with it. They run it, and that's the place where you're going to want to register and set up an application for certification. That's also where you'll receive our responses, where you'll perform annual renewals. It's one of our primary points of entry and use for the COBID certification program. There's a list on the COBID website of documents to gather. We always tell folks it can be a relatively long application process the first time, but it's kind of like at tax time. The more of your documents you have as PDFs on your desktop or sitting there at the ready before you enter into the application process, the smoother it's going to go for you because you're not running around grabbing documents. So we do recommend people check out the required documents list first. And if you have any questions about whether or not a document is required for your business, please just give us a call. We are all very accessible for questions about this, and the entire staff is kind of aware of the application process. You'll set up a basic registry, username and password, and at that point you can select which certifications you'd like to apply for. Once we receive your application, under the regulatory requirements, we have 60 to 90 days to consider that application. Right now, I'm happy to say that our office average is about 42 days for processing of new applications. I call that out because sometimes people find out about our program after having interest in a contract. And for equity purposes, we process all applications in the order received. So if there is a contract you're really interested in bidding on, it's good to have that COBID certification already in place or in motion prior to that, because you do need to be certified at the point of gaining that contract to be counted for participation in the program. Once your application is in there, it gets assigned to what we call our certification specialist. This is the person who's going to work with you kind of in a service partnership to make sure your documents are in, maybe ask questions to clarify our needs to meet our state and federal regulations. And then sometimes there's follow-up for additional documentation. And in the case of the DBE program, there is a mandatory on-site visitation where they'll actually come out to a work site. If you're a consulting or marketing person, yes, we can do that over Zoom or Teams. We don't need to see your home office necessarily, but if you're doing construction or framing or asphalt, we would like to see a job, and we kind of ensure for our partners that the business is what we call shovel ready and capable of honoring contracts out of the gate. So that's why we come and perform an on-site. And then once we get past those elements, we're able to deliver a decision. The grand majority of applications that come through our system, I could say this empirically as our data analyst, are approved, which is great. And if you're approved within 24 hours, you appear on our live directory that all the partners and agencies check, and you are ready and able to honor contracts which have a kind of COBID requirement or a set aside on it. So that's the basic kind of front to back operations for it. Again, any questions during that process, you can reach out direct to our main office or any of us. We're on the Business Oregon directory, and all of our cell phones we pick up on a regular basis. So one thing to know in advance, it's kind of good to know what your NAICS codes and NIGP codes are. This is pretty detail oriented, but it's also something our office can help with. Some of y'all probably already have this on your resumes and marketing materials. It lets the folks you're contracting with know what your primary business is, what you do. So just want to call that out. That's something we can assist you with, but it's also something to look into in advance. And we'll take a brief look at some of the qualifications. I'll go over this one in slight detail, and the rest of them are quite similar. So minority business enterprise, we're looking for 51% ownership by qualifying minority individuals. You need to have management and control of that business. You need to have technical competence in your principal services and licensing, for example. If your business requires a CCB or LCB or plumbing license, we need to know that that's in place for you. You do need to be a U.S. citizen or lawfully admitted permanent resident, and the firm needs to be independent. So it can't be a subsidiary or affiliate of another larger firm. It can't use another firm's equipment necessarily. It kind of needs to be its own entity. And then being legally able to operate, being registered with Secretary of State, all those things are beneficial, obviously. And then there's some economic thresholds. You do want to be under 31.84 million in gross proceeds across the 3-year average. That is kind of one of our largest thresholds. And then we look at the individual business and also say, hey, are you under kind of SBA size standards that let us know you're a small business? Women's business enterprise is the same thing, but the owner is a woman. Veterans business enterprise is the same thing, but the owner is a veteran, and there's a couple extra veteran documents that need to be provided. ESB, in this case, it's not about the owner, it's about the overall firm itself. So we have separate criteria that says, are you a small business here in Oregon? You need to be for profit, licensed, under these economic tiers that you see at the bottom left there for construction and non-construction. And you have to have independence, and you're allowed to be in this program for about 12 years. So that's kind of the overview of ESB. And then with the DBE program, very similar criteria, but this is for working on the federally allotted projects and in specific doing a lot of the ODOT work. In this case, they're looking for socially and economically disadvantaged owners having 51% ownership. And then again, just do you manage and control your business? Do you have the licensure required to operate? Are you independent? And there's basically the same thresholds, 31.84 million. But the only difference here is they also measure your personal net worth to make sure there isn't a separate kind of like personal level of affluence that gives you an unfair advantage in the business world. So that has actually been bumped up recently for inflation to 2.047 million. So there's a little more room to grow there. And yeah, they've been improving this program a lot. You have more room to grow as a business. You can have boom and bust years and still stay within these thresholds. The application process has become faster. They're excluding your retirement assets from inclusion in personal net worth now, so they're not penalizing you for saving for your future, which is a wonderful change. And you have very basic renewal requirements each year, which we also now have for our state certifications as of the 28th of April. So that's something we're excited to talk about separately, but I believe that's most of COBID's time today. And if you have any questions, obviously we're there in the chat for this presentation, but we can also be reached here at our general COBID contacts. And thank you for your time.